but actually the most important part of it is the people that support it, you know. And I sort of bring a bit of military kind of methodology into this. I always have done. You know, there's three things that make things happen. It's like the conceptual kind of it, the thought process. Then you have the physical aspect, which is all the people, the equipment, you know, the finances. And the most important part, which sometimes can be left behind, is the moral aspect. And that's sort of about the behaviours, the cultures, how we get things done, how we motivate people. About that, slight glitch. Good to see you again.
Likewise. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this online summit and to share a bit about your history and also your words of wisdom for what I've got coming up.
I hope so. But no, I look forward to chatting with you.
Yeah. So, you know, I wanted to speak with you because you've got a world of knowledge, but you're not one of the famous cyclists or elite runners that we see on the magazines that do all these epic challenges. But thanks to what you do, they're able to accomplish what they do themselves. So could you share a little bit about your background and also your company, which is called Leadership Challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent the best part of 26 years in the military as a military engineer. And it's through those 26 years I've developed, like most people that leave the military, we're very fortunate to receive some of the best training in the world. And whether that's from planning operations overseas, planning just training, that could be adventure training, taking a group of people skiing, to the more sort of severe kind of operations over in the Middle East we're all fully aware of. And sort of from an engineering perspective, a lot of construction, from civil engineering to deliberate operations. So that might be building a mechanical bridge to allow the forces to cross over. It might be removing things out the ground that are not very pleasant, to diving operations. And as you can imagine, sort of in quite a hectic environment, that the utmost of planning is so critical. It's absolutely essential, because in a normal project context, you can imagine if we're late, then there might be a financial consequence, that there may be other consequences, but in a sort of a wartime military kind of scenario, people's lives are at stake. So it has to be absolutely pinpointed, laser focused planning all the way through. So I've received some really good training, and I've had some formal training in project management. And on leaving the army sort of about 6 years ago, I sort of embarked on helping two inspiring people, Jeff Thomas, John Horn. We formed Leadership Challenges, and using that experience from the military, we've been sort of over the last 5 years running challenges to, well, three kind of programs. Sort of one to sort of help corporates with some leadership training. We've been helping sort of just endeavour programs, and that's mainly been focused around supporting military veterans coming out of the military, and especially those that have physical and mental injuries, because as we all know, people with sort of mental health problems, they need a lot of focus and a lot of purpose. And what we've been trying to do is meet those needs through inspiring them through these challenges. And we'll talk about a little bit about the Race Across America, which is something we've been doing quite well for a number of years now. And the third program is kind of a little bit off kilter, but it's about supporting elite performance personnel to gain world records or to sort of beat the limits of human endurance. So I know, speaking to Mark Beaumont a bit later, I was quite involved in Mark's planning of around the world, the 80 Days project. So we spent the last 5 years kind of doing that and inspiring and helping people achieve those aims. And over the next 5 years, the sort of company is shifting its focus slightly into 3 dedicated programs. And over the last 5 years, we kind of analysed what did we do well, what didn't we do so well. What we did do well is assisting and helping the military charities. So we're going to continue to run a military veterans program, and we're working with Blesma already, and they will be going on to the Race Across America next year. We had a very successful pilot program last year working with Bath Rugby Foundation, and that was inspiration from John Hall. And what I did is sort of help John meet his needs of pulling together these 10 young adults, young leaders, sort of as mentees, And then we assign mentors to these young individuals to sort of improve their lives, inspire them, and we sort of taught them how to ride bikes effectively, improve their fitness, their well-being, showed them how to cook, and then inspired them through this amazing challenge. And we took them to the Andes Mountains in Chile last November to sort of pull that program together. So we're going to continue to run with this sort of young leaders program, and we will still run with the elite program, because I think it's really inspiring. And we always notice when we're working with the likes of Mark and other athletes, the other groups, the other teams look up to them. We can get people like Mark and people like yourself, Kate, to come in to these groups and inspire them and talk about sort of how you prepare yourself for these challenges. I know that's why you're talking to us, but you have a huge amount of knowledge. You've stretched yourself far beyond their thoughts, you know, on how to achieve certain things. And everyone's interested in how do you translate that into other kind of areas of life, isn't it? And that's kind of what we've been trying to do. So that's a little bit of focus about what we do. And obviously over those last 5 years, we've built up quite a bit of knowledge, working around the world, taking teams to Nepal. So we've taken a group of bike cyclists to Nepal. We took the young leaders to Chile. We've done Race Across America for the last 5 years. And obviously the kind of the amazing thing we did was support Mark Beaumont on his sort of 80-day challenge, which, you know, we learned a huge amount from. But very inspiring stuff, and we seek opportunities moving forward to, you know, to help those inspirations come to reality, and for lots of us to follow, because it's about people that follow these challenges that they get inspiration from. And we've converted so many people into avid cyclists now that we never would have thought about it, because it is all possible. It's just how you approach it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, a couple of months ago, I mentioned to you that I had this sort of crazy idea of cycling across America in RAM, swimming the channel, and then summiting Everest. And then I put a full stop. And I think that's where you could come in and, like, what's the importance of making this dream of mine, or this crazy dream of mine, come to reality with regards to project management?
Yeah, well, it is. It's huge. Don't get me wrong. And, you know, I was speaking to various people last night about other aspects of challenges, and sort of I've often, since I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago, so how would you do this? And we've done RAM lots of times. We think we know it relatively well, and we've done a bit of supporting the channel swim, and we've been sort of kicking our heels in Nepal as well. But actually, when you bring it all together for one person's inspirations, it kind of merges as one big challenge, although they are very separate and probably have to be treated as separate projects, but it's a program, for the better words. And you know, you have an objective, is to be the first female to achieve that. So there's clear definition of what needs to happen. But yeah, it's quite big, but I get around that, and this is sort of the meat of how I I measure the success at leadership challenges. It's not about my knowledge. And most people know project planning is a big part of it, to try and reduce the risk, drive efficiencies, etc., etc. But actually, the most important part of it is the people that support it. You know, and I sort of bring a bit of military kind of methodology into this. And I always have done. You know, there's 3 things that make things happen. It's like the conceptual kind of it, the thought process. Then you have the physical aspect, which is all the people, the equipment, you know, the finances. And the most important part, which sometimes can be left behind, is the moral aspect. And that's sort of about the behaviors, the cultures, how we get things done, how we motivate people. And no matter how much you spend on the conceptual and the physical, if you get the moral bit wrong, things can start to go wrong and projects can fail. So for me, it's, you know, yes, there's a huge life cycle behind how do we get you from here onto a bike, into some swimming costume, then some crampons on and up a hill. And I'm not talking blasé because they're massive. They're really big aspirations. But it's, you know, for me, straight away, my thought process is about how do you get the right teams behind all this, and important buy-in by everybody to believe in you, and for every single team member to believe in you. Because if they don't, it doesn't kind of work for me. And that's sort of as hard to get people to buy into every aspect of this. They've got to believe in it, and your family, your support network, and everyone that works under you to support your ambitions have to believe in that, you know, and that's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, what I'm hearing is I might have a dream to do something and I might be the fittest person and most capable physically, but if I don't have the team and the structure behind me, it's not going to happen. When you're picking a team, what are you actually looking for in?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And everyone knows, you're the sort of swan on the surface and there's all the legs paddling away underneath. And, I'll share with you in time to come some of the planning behind the Beaumont piece, but it's very key to first start off and understand what the athlete, the professional, what are you trying to achieve, absolutely what you're trying to achieve, and the team for a project, for building a construction project, for a team supporting, sorry, that's the wrong example really, a team going on an endeavour task. So some of the RAM teams we put together, where we're trying to just inspire, develop resilience, confidence, and overall sort of leadership ability to set that team up and for it to function is very different from supporting a world-class athlete that's after a world record. Very, very different. So the team for the sort of leadership development, we want to empower them. So we want to tell them what needs to happen, not necessarily how to do it, because we want them to make mistakes, we want to learn by those mistakes. But they need to be resourced well, and they need to have the skills to get on and do it. And then sort of the leaders will then sort of nurture the process. For a professional team, so let's take the Mark Beaumont, there isn't the space for that. There really, really isn't. So the team that come on, we're looking for it, there needs to be currency and competency in the individuals, very bespoke people, but even more important, the ability to stay in their professional boundaries and get on with the task, but have the ability to influence other people. So have those leadership abilities, because, it doesn't matter what happens on a project. You can have the best leadership in the world. You'll have dips, things will go wrong, and that's normal. It really is normal for arguments to happen, for issues to come up, and for differences in people's opinions. It's kind of healthy. If it doesn't happen, there's something wrong. So when people come back off expedition and say there was not a single problem, we went all the way to the summit of Everest, no issues whatsoever. They're just painting over kind of cracks, where actually exploit where it went wrong, and why it went wrong, but you still achieved the aim. You still summited Everest. So it was a success. It was an absolute success. So the key components of the people are really, really important. And, for biking, obviously, you need cycling coaches. You need people that understand the sort of psychology behind it, what you're going to go through. You need mechanics, that kind of stuff. But if you're sort of pulling a team together that actually we're doing this to be inspired, we're doing this for our mental health, then actually, it's an easier team to develop almost. But even so, you still have problems that you'll come across, even on Race Across America, with a corporate leadership team, because people will, they will find it tough. Ultimately, they really will.
Yeah, I was talking with a group of 4 ladies attempting to row across the Atlantic recently, and we were talking about something similar, which is when it's fine, everyone's fine. It's when we're tired, when we're stressed, when there's a puncture, when we run out of food, when there's a problem, that's when the personalities sort of will clash, and that's when the team might break down.
Well, it brings on to a really nice point, and it's about situational leadership. And there's 2 things really. It's resilience, so train, plan. And the way for the professional side, so for Mark Beaumont, for instance, we had sort of a lot of standing operating procedures in place. So how do you change a puncher? What happens when Mark finishes for a 15-minute break? And it's literally serial 1, take his GPS off and put it on charge for 20 minutes, take his lights off, oil his chain. It's that kind of thing. So it needs to be intuitive. So when really, really tired, you've got a checklist to follow. The other part of it is understanding that sort of task and behavior relationship, and the importance of supporting teams to build a very early ethos. And we look at sort of people coming onto a project won't quite understand what it is they've been asked to do. And certainly on the most occasions, they won't understand the people around them. So it's that sort of kind of Hersey Blanchard sort of situational leadership curve. And we teach that actually on our SIMEX, our simulation exercise before we go to RAM. We know quite most years, and the last year was slightly different because we're starting to train it more and more. There's a certain point on Race Across America where normally when things go wrong, they'll go wrong, and it's called Terrible Tuesday. It's 3 days in, And it's normally around about when you hit the Rocky Mountains, the highest point of Race Across America. And it's not so much the cyclists, it's more the sort of support crew. And they kind of look at the sort of the maps, they look at how far we have to do. And you sort of, in challenge time, you're halfway through, but you're only a third of the distance complete. So of course, people look at themselves and think, well, how is this ever going to happen? You know, how can we do this? And then there's normally kind of lots of frictions going on. And then sort of eventually they realize from the Rockies, and it's good for you to take note, all the way to the Mississippi, it's pretty much a downhill profile because everything drains into the Mississippi from the Rockies. So actually you gain that sort of lost ground, as it were, and pick up the time. But the point I'm getting to is that situational leadership is how we form the teams. And what I like to do is really build on teamship first, so people get to understand each other, put them through scenarios that are not related to the challenge if you can, so they get to understand the behaviors. So when they come onto the challenge and they're learning the ropes, because the first few days you are on RAM very much because it's quite hard to get everyone to come together, you know, they're actually dealing with their own individual tasks rather than having to worry about what's going on around them. Because as you're probably aware, most people, they don't want to be the one that makes things fail. They want to exceed in what they're doing. So if anyone starts interrupting and moves a pen out of place or something ridiculous or moves the car seats, you'd be surprised what erupts from that. And it's because you're starting to encroach into their boundaries. They're not happy for someone else to assist them because they've just understood what that task is. So kind of understanding the people and the task orientation is so important. And, you know, we experience it, everyone experiences it in the project management scenario, and certainly we do on the challenges as well.
Yeah, because just for people who aren't aware, for me to cycle alone across the Race Across America, we're looking at how many people to support me?
Well, I mean, you've got a team on the road supporting you, probably around about 3 people. And then those 3 people, they're not going to keep going for 7, 8, 9 days. They'll need to rest. So you need another support team. So it could be anything from 6 people, you know, to support you. But then, you know, that's just the team on the road. Then you sort of dress that back to what happens from now until that point. You've got the planning team, you've got the sponsors, the amount of stakeholders is significant, you know, and they all want a piece of the success. So you've got to share that success. To do that, you need a media crew. So that's another group of people on the road, you know, and then there's people supporting the IT, the technology, medical kind of stuff. So, and we try and sort of find people that are multi-talented, so dual purpose sort of roles, and that's quite critical because obviously there's always a budget to everything we do, and we've got to kind of drive the costs down where we can, but it's not always the case. And then there's of course contingency. So what happens when someone, you know, has an accident or they burn themselves and they're taken out of the scenario? You're then sort of down to 2 people, or do you fly somebody else in? So, you know, the project team's growing, but the more knowledge and the more understand you have of it, I suppose really the more risk you can take. And it's all about reducing the risk. It really, really is. And the better you can train the people, the more resilient they are on the roads. Because we have people come Race Across America that have no idea what they've signed up to. They really haven't. They get day three in, and they just sort of kind of get a bit wobbly. And then that takes someone else out of this because they've got to look after the crew. There's a balance. You don't want crew supporting crew. The crew are there to support the athletes. That's it. You know, and then as soon as you start having crew supporting crew, then there's a surplus requirement almost. It's like you hear the horrible saying excess baggage, but reality is you can't afford to be carrying those extra people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, something that draws to mind as well is at the moment, the cyclist, before the race, the cyclist might be driving all the competition and the training, etc. But on race week, should we say, not race day, yep, they just turn up and pedal. How do you empower the team to make decisions when there may be a mobile leader, like no one is number 1 all the time?
So the way we kind of work it is so whoever the athlete is on the road, we have a performance manager essentially that looks purely after the athletes, so their well-being. They'll understand the athlete from a year, 2 years out, so they understand, you know, their sort of how their body operates, their mind works, what their nutrition, their limits, you know, and they can monitor them effectively. So you need someone looking after the athletes, and that's very different from somebody sort of managing the team. So if there was an incident on the road, for instance, or something happened, then the team manager would kind of oversee that whole piece. So it might be a car breaking down, for instance. It's not really down to the performance manager to deal with the car breakdown, because once the car breaks down, it's highly likely the athlete will have to stop. But that athlete still needs the needs, of nutrition, taking out the 40 degrees blistering heat, that kind of stuff. So we have a hierarchy. I think it's important to have a hierarchy, and it's about kind of staying in lanes and using those professional boundaries. But the cyclist shouldn't have to ever look over their shoulder and go, what's happening? Because you will not have the ability. And I've passed many solo cyclists on RAM, on a bike and in a car, and I've tried putting my arm around them to talk to them, and they can't talk. Towards the latter part of the races, they've put absolutely everything into this. They are really on their chin straps. They're absolutely exhausted to the utmost degree. So everything has to be done from them, to almost grabbing them as they finish their ride, taking them off their bike, to rubbing them down, putting ice, feeding them, all that kind of good stuff. And all that needs to happen. But that will only happen through really, really good planning, good training. And as I said before, the investment into the team, and they've got to buy into what's happening, what are the goals, and how do my actions affect not only the team, but the aspirations to achieve Race Across America or Summit Everest. And if you don't have the buy-in, or people are so kind of dubious about whether they're going to do this, then it starts to become fragmented in the team, and it becomes a bigger issue. So yeah, but there's a hierarchy generally within the team, and well-trained roles to deliver and support the athletes.
Yeah, what you just shared about the experience of a cyclist, it gets me very, very nervous, because I will be that person who will be carried off her bike and put on ice, basically. But then on the other hand, I know I'm not doing it for 2 years, so it will take me 2 years to be at that level of training and be able to cope mentally, physically, and emotionally with that. But I don't need to know it now, so there's no surprises. I'm scared today.
No, not at all. And it's kind of, I suppose, I ask Mark all the time, how do you sit in the saddle for 240 hours every day? And how did you do it for 78 days? And, I absolutely bought into the project 18 months, 2 years out for what Mark needed to do. I had to, otherwise I couldn't have supported him. And it wasn't just me, there was a lot of us that were supporting Mark, there really was. And he kept saying, well, look, it's just pain, not injury. And it's about the resilience for most athletes on the bike. How do you deal with that sort of independence and being on your own for long periods of time? But it's down to the crew, and this is where the crew really come into their element. Is to they need to read the needs of Kate. They need to understand what's coming up in the next 2 minutes. And Mark's performance manager Laura, she had every 5 or 10 minutes we were approaching Mark, if not more. Is everything okay? And you can tell watching a rider after a period of time what state they're in, just through their cadence, which way they're leaning. Why is the knee going slightly out? What's the matter? He's got a sore bum. It's anticipation a lot of the time, and the quicker you can get the team to come together, the more understanding they have, then the better prepared they are to be on the road. Because actually, what you don't need is a kind of fresh team that are not that well experienced coming on the road. And then for the first 3 or 4 days, you might be fine with their kind of lack of understanding, but that's going to pay a heavy price in the next 4 to 5 days. We don't need that. We need to be driving efficiencies right from the very first day, and be very disciplined, because you might turn and say, no, I can do an extra 15 minutes. I feel great. Well, actually, Kate, you need to listen to the performance manager, because the performance manager is saying stop for this reason, or maybe something else, the wind's going to start to come in. And, so there's lots of sort of effects that we need to anticipate to ensure that you're served well.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts. It's it's incredible. And we just talked about team. You just touched on environment. You just touched on other things. And we've just talked about the Race Across America, the cycle, because only 2 months after that, I'll be in the ocean or the swimming 21 miles. So would you suggest? I mean, completely yes or no question, but Would you suggest the same team or a very distinct team for each discipline?
It's a good question. You know, there'll be certain people that you'll probably want to, that you'll be close to, that you trust, and whether that's performance related, because actually they will follow through. You know, there will be strands with certain people that come through this, and certainly from a project team. You know, if they're treating this as a program, they will be trying to kind of use resources scarcely, and people that have got the time that can sort of bounce from one project to another, because the more people that know you and know how you operate is going to be far more effective than starting off with fresh teams. But the big thing is the swim, it, again, is an independent event, as is unsupported, but so is cycling. And then you go to the sort of the summit of Everest, which is a very, very different ball game, and it gets more and more technical really as you're moving through the challenges. So there's going to be people being bolstered into the team, different aspects, and that makes absolute sense to it. It's no different from a fit out of a house. You know, you do your first build, you put your first fix in, and then you get all those tradesmen coming in. You know, they're new people coming to the team, so that's absolutely fine. The key bit is ensuring that that whole team, you know, right from the very beginning, wherever they come in, they pick up, they understand that ethos, they join that ethos. And they want that shared success, not just for you know, for themselves and everyone else. And they buy into what it is you're trying to achieve, which, you know, which is a big part of getting this done. But yeah, that needs to be analysed. But you know, you don't need a skipper, a sea navigator, a day skipper on RAM essentially. And however, he might be the best medic and chef in the world and might wish to come on RAM. So it's about understanding the individuals and their competencies, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you know, I know that we're going to carry on this conversation you know, later as well with leadership challenges, to see what we can do together to make sure that this dream becomes a reality for me, and as you said, for key stakeholders in the team, because this isn't just about me. And I'd love to carry on talking, but I would, if I could ask just 5 questions at the end, just sure. To get your insights. One of them is, what is the one skill you think leaders need today?
Crikey, I've always been a fan on communication, because leadership is about sort of social influence. It's being able to talk to people, you know, through good times, bad times, and rewards, discipline. Everything comes down to communication to inspire people. It comes from sort of the person, the mannerisms, the character. So I think communications is huge, but there's, you know, you could talk for hours and hours on leadership. What, you know, you've got to be the empathy, humility, all those really good qualities, you know, because as I said, the moral component is so important. And if you're not there for the right reasons, people will tend to not follow you. You know, and it's tough. It's tough, but communications, without a shadow of a doubt, is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, people forget that communication also means using our ears.
Yeah, it's both ways. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and personally, what do you follow more? Is it logic or intuition?
Well, being in the military, I think kind of standard operating procedure. So it's kind of logic, really. But I think over the time, and I've had the fortunate ability to develop outside of the military in kind of leadership and sort of doing these challenges. And yeah, it's a blend of both. I don't think anyone would ever use one or the other. Intuition does come in. And, you know, big thing I always learned as well, you might think it's logical. Practice makes perfect practice. It doesn't necessarily make perfect. So you have to have the blend and the external influences to make sure you're on track, and what you are practicing is what needs to be done. So I think there's definitely a blend. Yeah,
very wise. And how do you personally deal with failure or not achieving goals?
I struggle. I think everyone does. It's hard, isn't it? What I have learned though is to give it a period of time before I start to reanalyze where I've gone wrong. And I always try and reattempt all the courses that I failed in the military, sort of the more sort of enduring courses, just to go away, analyze what I need to improve on, and go back and then hit it hard. It does. You go back strong. I think we all know that. But yeah, it's tough. But it's having people around you that believe in you, you know. And I think it's really important for everything, you know. And I said right at the beginning, having your team, your family around you. So things do go wrong, and things will always go wrong. That's life. The team, everyone's around there to give you that confidence to get back up and keep moving on in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. And what keeps you motivated every day?
I think since leaving the military, the military, we're always kicked. That hurts, so keep moving. But I think leaving the military, I'm in quite a fortunate position where I'm adding value to people's lives by putting them on these challenges. And although I don't necessarily get involved on the bike, but supporting, pulling teams together to see those smiling faces, inspired people at the end of it is really, really, it's incredibly inspiring. And as much as I get pushed with potentially the likes of you and Mark Beaumont's, they're in massively inspiring things, but I go through a whole load of pain to get to that point. But overall, that's the motivation that I need to keep going. Yeah,
it's great. What one thing would you like to leave us with, or a message you'd like to leave us with after this talk?
I think really it's just the points I talked about at the beginning, about the sort of conceptual, physical and the moral components. It's very easy to get laboured into the planning and finances of challenges and projects. And you might think, well, I've got a chef, I've got this, I've got that. But actually, it's a small way to what you need to achieve success. Invest into your people, because even if you're not the best cycle mechanic, or they're not the best driver or the best navigator, if they've got the right attitudes and the right attitudes, we will get there. We will make it happen. What you don't want is someone with all the skills, but actually not the right beliefs, the understanding. So invest into the people, the team, and it will happen for you.
Yeah, wonderful words. Thank you so much, Mike. And for the listeners today, for the people who've listening to the live stream, how can we get in touch with you and Leadership Challenges?
So you can log onto the website. It's just been revamped at the moment, but it's you can get onto info@leadershipchallenges.com or onto our Facebook page, or just email me on my LinkedIn. But we can send something out, or you can send something out. Yeah,
I'll be showing them in the show notes as well, but it's just for the people who are live. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. You honestly put my mind at rest a lot of times whenever I talk with you, because it's bringing the unknown into the known so we can do something with it. Yes. But I find what you share absolute gold, and I'll be definitely picking up a few of those points with you later offline as well.
Lovely. I look forward to it, and the best of luck for the challenges.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.